Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to the Men Save Your Marriage show. My name is Terry. I'm your host. I did an autopsy on my failed marriage, and now I use the lessons that I learned to coach other men on how to save their marriage before it fails. I'm going to share with you the things I wish someone would have shared with me before my marriage failed. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back. You just heard the bell. That means that we are in the ring together, and we are in the ring to fight for your marriage. It's been a few weeks since I sat here behind the microphone. Some of you noticed. I've heard from a few of you. Some of you probably thought the podcast was finished or that I'd tapped out and maybe life had gotten in the way, but none of that's true. I'm here. I just took a few weeks off, but I am here. I am back in the fight, back where I belong, talking to you gentlemen. And over this time off, I've had a lot of time to think, and in recent events, there was a massive event that happened in our world, and that was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And the shock of that hit kind of like a lightning bolt. You know, it wasn't a headline you scroll past. It wasn't something that you move on from in 5 minutes. It was a moment, and I can tell you from my position and the number of men that I talked to, it stopped a lot of men dead in their tracks, including me. And it's been a moment that's forced reflection. I have 3 young adult children. My oldest son is 25. And then I have a son and a daughter that are twins, and they are 22. So all of this affected my family because my children were in that age category where they were very impacted by Charlie Kirk. And I realized that it impacted me too. And I really needed to take some time and separate a little bit of the difference between, is this a father, thinking about and praying over his children, or is this me, myself? And I needed a moment. And some of the men that I've talked with and I counsel and I coach and interact with, they needed a moment too. So I got to taking some time to really begin to understand why. And I think there is an angle here that we need to discuss specifically for this podcast and the men that I talk to. And I think here's the reason why I think it shook a lot of men. Not because Charlie was perfect, because he wasn't. Or not because everyone agreed with him. They didn't. Not because he was universally loved, because he wasn't. But because of what he represented. And when I say that, I don't mean the politics. I don't mean the faith. What I mean is this. One word. Charlie Kirk represented action. He was a man who acted. He didn't sit idle. He didn't hide. He didn't wait for everything to be safe and certain or comfortable. He stood up. He led. He risked. And he paid the ultimate price. That's why I pressed record today while I'm still traveling. I'm not yet back home. Because when a man of action is cut down, it forces the rest of us to look into the mirror and ask some hard questions. Questions like, where is my action? Where's my leadership? What am I doing with the one life I've been given? And that's kind of the mirror that I want to kind of put before you today. Because I've taken the time to look in that mirror myself. And now I want to give you this privilege. And I want us to stare into this mirror together. I think it matters. It matters for your life. It matters for your marriage, just like it matters for my life. Now, let's be clear. Charlie's primary audience was young men, college-age men, Gen Z men, wandering without direction, searching for a compass. That was his lane. That was his demographic. But when the news came, it wasn't only 24-year-olds who grieved. It wasn't only college students who felt the gut punch. It was men in their 30s, men in their 40s and 50s and 60s. I know I've talked to a bunch of them. Men far outside his target market. And why? Because leadership speaks across generations. Action speaks across generations. It doesn't matter if you're 20 or 60. When you see a man stand up, risk everything, and move, something inside you wakes up. You feel it in your gut because you know you're supposed to be that man too. You know you're built for movement, for risk, for leadership. And you can disagree, again, with Charlie's politics. It's not about that. You can dislike his style, you can argue with his approach, but you cannot ignore his courage. You cannot ignore his willingness to step into the arena. And when a man who does that is taken out, every other man is forced to wrestle with his own lack of movement. That's why you felt it. That's why you paused when you heard. That's why you haven't been able to shake it. Because in his action, you saw your inaction. In his courage, you saw your fear. And in his leadership, you saw your silence. There's something about action that cuts right through all excuses. When you see a man acting boldly, you cannot hide from your own passivity. Think about this. Why do so many men respect soldiers? Not because every soldier is flawless, not because every mission is perfect, but because soldiers act. They stand in the line of fire while the rest of us stand back. Why do men respect first responders? Not because they never make mistakes, but because they're the ones running into the fire while everyone else runs out. Action exposes paralysis. Let me say that again. Action exposes paralysis. And leadership exposes fear. And movement exposes excuses. Charlie's death hurt because it exposed, it revealed, it forced men of every age to face the truth. Too many of us are sitting on the sidelines. Too many of us are hiding, and too many of us are paralyzed by fear. And here's the truth that you don't want to face. Your paralysis is not just cultural. It's personal, it's in your house, and it's in your marriage. This podcast is not about politics. It's not about the news cycle, and it's not about men. It's only about men, marriages, leadership, and presence. So let's move from culture to your kitchen table. When Charlie was assassinated, you felt it, but the reason it cut you deeper than you admit is because you know you're failing at the same thing he embodied. He acted, and you don't. And nowhere is that clearer than in your marriage. You're listening to this very podcast because your marriage is in trouble. You know it. You feel it. You can't deny it. There's tension. There's coldness. There's distance. The sex is gone or almost non-existent. The fights that go nowhere. The disrespect that stings you. The loneliness that follows you, even in the same house. And you've blamed her. You've told yourself the problem is her anger, her withdrawal, her disrespect, her rejection. But if you look in the mirror and if you're honest, you know the truth. The problem is your lack of leadership. The problem is your fear. And the problem is your silence. That's why this cultural moment matters. Because Charlie's death is not just about a leader being cut down. It's about exposing our failure to lead. You felt it because you know you're not leading where it matters most. And that is at home. So here's the uncomfortable mirror that I want you to look into. Charlie acted, you don't. Charlie risked, you hide. Charlie stepped into the arena, you sit on the sidelines. Charlie gave it everything he had. You're giving your marriage half effort while scrolling your phone at night, pretending you're engaged. That's the truth. That's the mirror that you're looking into now as you listen to this podcast. And that's why you're restless. But here's the good news. The mirror doesn't have to destroy you. It can wake you up. It can be the moment you decide to stop hiding and to start leading. But only if you're honest enough to face it. So let's talk about silence. Because that's the form fear takes most often in men having in failing marriages. Let me kind of rephrase that, okay? In failing marriages, and I see this every day with thousands of men, okay? In failing marriage, silence is the form that fear takes most often. You don't yell, you don't fight, you don't throw things, you go silent. You think you're keeping the peace, but you're just letting your marriage die quietly. She cuts you down and you swallow it. She pulls away and you stay quiet. She rejects your touch, you just roll over and go to sleep. She spends money you don't have, you avoid the conversation. If she leads the kids spiritually while you sit back and justify it. She controls the schedule, the family, the tone of the house, and you just go along. That silence is not noble, gentlemen. That silence is not peacekeeping. That silence is fear. And fear always destroys. You're scared of conflict, so you avoid it. And in avoiding it, you guarantee it's going to grow. You're scared of rejection, so you avoid pursuing her. And in avoiding it, you guarantee distance. You're scared of leading, so you avoid the risk. And in avoiding the risk of leading, you guarantee your wife sees you as weak. Silence is not neutral. Silence is surrender. And you're not keeping the peace in silence. You are surrendering. And surrender is why your marriage is crumbling. And fear, most often in the form of silence, but fear is your master. You don't want to admit it, but look at your actions. Fear tells you when to speak and you obey. Fear tells you when to stay quiet and you obey. Fear tells you not to risk and you obey. You are serving your fear. And listen, here's the brutal truth about this. The failure you're afraid of, it's already happening. You're afraid of conflict, but you're already in conflict. You're afraid of rejection, but you've already been rejected. And you're afraid of failure, but you're failing already. Fear is not saving you. Fear is already delivering the pain you're trying to avoid. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative, gentlemen, is leadership. Leadership is not confidence. Leadership is not knowing the outcome. Leadership is not having all the answers. So let's clear this up. You don't have to have any of that to lead. Leadership is acting in the presence of fear. That's it. Just being willing to act in the presence of your own fear. That is leadership. Leadership is making the move when your chest is tight and when your heart is pounding. Maybe your hands are shaking a little bit. Leadership is choosing to move when fear is screaming at you to sit still. I think that's one of the things we saw in Charlie Kirk, because Charlie was not fearless, but he acted. And that's why men respected him. That's why this is your wake-up call. Because leadership in your marriage will never be about waiting until you feel ready. It will always be about acting while you are scared. So let's slow down and call it what it is. Passivity doesn't always look like weakness on the outside. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like not rocking the boat. Sometimes it looks like peacekeeping, but underneath, it's really just fear. And Terry, what do you mean passive? Well, here's what passivity is when I break it down into marriages and a lot of what I see. Passivity is sitting at the dinner table in silence while your wife scrolls her phone, cold and distant. Or avoiding eye contact when she sighs and mutters something like, "You never listened to me." Or saying to her whatever you want every time she asks about plans. Passivity maybe looks like walking away from a fight instead of finishing the conversation with clarity. Or pretending everything's fine because you don't want to risk another argument. Maybe passivity for you looks like staying up late watching videos or scrolling your phone because you don't know how to face her anymore. Or maybe passivity is thinking about sex but never initiating it because you don't want to hear "not tonight." Every one of these moments is leadership abandoned. Every one is fear making your decisions for you, and your wife feels it. She feels your silence. She feels your avoidance. She feels your hesitation. She feels your weakness, and little by little, her respect for you drains away. Now, your wife doesn't stop loving you overnight, and love can hang on through a lot. But respect, well, respect is fragile. And once it's gone, everything changes. A woman can love a man she doesn't respect, but she cannot desire him. I want you to make sure you hear that as I say that again. A woman can love a man that she doesn't respect, but she will only desire a man that she respects. So if the respect is gone, she will not desire you. And when desire and admiration and respect die, intimacy dies as well. And once intimacy dies, a marriage becomes nothing more than two people surviving in the same house. I talk to a lot of you gentlemen, and a lot of you are living in cold marriages because you stopped doing the one thing that builds respect: leading. And you didn't stop because you didn't know how. You stopped because you were scared. And here's the lie that you've been telling yourself: if I avoid conflict, things will calm down. If I stay quiet, things won't get worse. If I don't risk, maybe things will slowly improve. And that is a lie, and it's killing you, and it's killing your marriage. Because in reality, avoiding conflict makes her think you don't care. Staying quiet makes her think that you are weak, and not risking makes her think you've already quit. You're not keeping the peace, you're not keeping the silence, and silence is not neutral. Silence is surrender. So now let me paint you a picture of what a fear-driven marriage looks like. You see, the fear-driven marriage is very predictable, and I see it with the men that I work with continually. The husband hides in work or hobbies or screens. The wife carries the weight of the home, resentful and burned out. Conversations are shallow, transactional. What's for dinner, or what time are you picking up the kids? Sex is gone, or if it's still existent in the marriage, it feels almost like a chore. The husband feels unwanted and the wife feels unseen. Both are lonely under the same roof. This is the slow death of passivity. That's the fruit of fear. And here's the brutal truth. If you keep going this way, you won't have to worry about your wife leaving. You'll already be divorced in spirit. The paperwork will just be the final step. Fear already delivers the pain that you're avoiding. Because, see, fear promises safety. If you don't risk, you won't hurt. If you don't act, you won't fail. If you don't stay quiet, or if you stay quiet, you won't make things worse. But fear is lying to you. You're already afraid of rejection, but you're already being rejected. You're already in conflict, and you're already failing. Fear is not protecting you. Fear has already given you the pain that you're trying to avoid. So then the question becomes, will you let fear keep owning you, or will you act in spite of it? Leadership is always action. And let's be clear, leadership is not knowledge, leadership is not ideas, and leadership is not theory. Leadership is action. And if you're not acting, you are not leading. And action means risk. Action means rejection. Action means that failure is possible. But action also means growth, and action means respect, and it means change. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know the end result. All you need to do is to move. Leadership is movement. Period. So what does movement look like? Maybe movement looks like planning a date night without asking permission. Just looking her in the eye and saying, we need to talk when something is wrong. Maybe movement looks like leading the kids in prayer even if you feel awkward. Or owning your mistakes and apologizing without excuses. This is leadership. It's simple, it's practical, and it's terrifying when you've been passive. But that's exactly why you need to do it, because leadership is always action in the presence of fear. And listen, there's a test that most of you are failing. If you are in a struggling marriage, more often than not, my experience and the history that I have with the men that I've coached tells me that you, are more often than not, you are failing this test. Every day, you're given dozens of small chances to act. to speak, to risk, to lead, and every day you pass them by. You swallow your words, or you avoid the conversation. You stay quiet, or you just scroll on your phone. And you think you're saving yourself from failure, but you're failing anyway. And every silent moment is another brick in the wall between you and her. Every avoided risk is another cut to her respect. Every passive day is another nail in the coffin of your marriage. And you're failing because you're scared. And, well, let's just name it, and this is going to sting. Your fear, being scared, is cowardice. And I know you don't like that word. And I don't like telling, the thousands of you that listen that you're cowards. It stings. It feels harsh. But it's true. If you're refusing to act because you're scared, that is the textbook definition of cowardice. And cowardice costs you everything. It costs you your wife's respect, your children's admiration, your self-respect when you look yourself in the mirror, and it's costing you your marriage. You think that you're playing it safe. You're not. You're just bleeding out slowly. And if nothing changes, you will wake up one day divorced, alone, bitter, and full of regret. And I want to avoid that, is why you and I are having this hard conversation right now. Every man comes to a fork in the road. You're standing at it right now as I confront you about this. One road is wide, comfortable, and easy. It requires nothing of you. No risk, no courage, no movement. On that road, you kind of get to stay silent, stay passive, stay safe. That road ends with your wife's respect gone, your kids grown, and your heart full of regret. The other road, though, is narrow. It's costly, and it's hard. It demands risk and courage. It demands leadership. And on that road, you're going to fail sometimes. You'll be rejected sometimes. You're going to face conflict. But on that road, you also gain respect. On that road, intimacy has the opportunity to return. On that road, you'd rediscover your own manhood. That's the fork. That's it. That is your choice. Wide and easy, or narrow and costly. Fear and passivity, or action and leadership. There is no third option. There's no middle path. And here's what you need to understand. The outcome is not the point, gentlemen. The action is the point. You're obsessed with results. You want guarantees. You want to know if you lead, she'll follow. If you plan, she'll say yes. If you risk, she'll reward you. And because you can't guarantee the outcome, you don't act. But leadership is not about the outcome. Leadership is about action. Even if she says no, I want you to act anyway. Even if she rejects you, act anyway. If the plan doesn't work out, act anyway. And if she doesn't notice, act anyway. Because the act itself builds respect from her, even if she rejected you, but it also builds your self-respect. The act itself changes you. The act itself is leadership. And over time, consistent action creates change. Now, there's a myth in most failed marriages, and it may be existing in yours. It's the myth of waiting. You've been waiting for the right time, waiting for her to soften, waiting for things to calm down, waiting until you feel stronger. Stop waiting. The right time will never come. She may never soften, things may never calm down, and you may never feel stronger. Waiting is fear in disguise. Waiting is just cowardice pretending to be wisdom. The only time you have is right now. The only chance you get is today, and the only decision that matters is the one you make in this moment. So I want you to lead today, to risk today, and to act today. And this is where it all comes down to three options: lead, follow, or get out of the way. Let me share with you the information on these three options, and then we'll wrap this up. If you will lead, then lead. Don't talk about it. Don't plan to someday. Don't think about it. Just lead. Lead your wife. Plan the date. Start the conversation. Lead your kids. Teach them. Correct them. Pray with them. Lead yourself. Discipline your body, discipline your money, discipline your habits. Leadership is not complicated. It is consistent action in the right direction. It is refusing to let fear stop you. If you will lead, then make that decision today and step into it. Now, if you won't lead, then you need to follow. Now, drop the pride, admit you need help, admit you need guidance, admit you need a man in your life who will push you until you can stand on your own. There's no shame in following when you're learning. The shame is in pretending you don't need it. So you follow until you can lead. So my question then becomes, who are you following? Maybe it's your father or your big brother. Maybe it's your local pastor. If you don't have anybody, follow me if you have to. If you have no one else, follow me for a while. Let me kick you in the rear end until you're standing up and ready to lead on your own. Let me challenge you until you build the muscle of leadership in your own life. But don't pretend you're leading when you're not. Don't fake it. Just follow until you're ready. And if you won't lead, and if you won't follow, well, then get out of the way. Stop pretending. Stop wasting everyone's time. Stop poisoning your house with cowardice. If you won't lead and you won't follow, then admit it. Admit you'd rather stay scared. Admit you'd rather keep hiding. Admit fear owns you. At least be honest about it. But don't sit in the middle anymore. Don't listen to this podcast and nod your head and then do nothing. That option is dead to every man listening. So lead, follow, or get out of the way. And do you know what's worse than failure? Indecision. Failure at least means you moved. Failure at least means you tried. Failure at least means you acted. And failure can be respected. Failure can be redeemed. But indecision, well, that's death. It kills slowly, it drains respect, it suffocates intimacy, and it rots marriages from the inside out. And most of you listening right now are living in indecision. You're not leading, you're not following, you're not out, you're stuck. Being stuck is why your wife resents you. Being stuck is why she's cold. Being stuck is why you feel unwanted. Gentlemen, indecision is killing you, and today is the day it ends. Now, I'm going to include in the text of the show notes of this episode, a practical battle plan for men in fear. And you've heard the mirror, you've heard about the fork in the road, but now I want to give you something you can put in your hands. A simple battle plan. Again, it'll be in the show notes. I'm going to run through it quickly now, but I'm going to do it very quickly, and it goes into deeper detail in the show notes, and it is a bit more extended. So consider this your marching orders, your battle plan in plain words. Write your fears and name them. Make one bold move every day. Speak what you've been swallowing. Build structure in your house. Discipline your body and mind. Set and enforce non-negotiables. Find brotherhood. Decide every morning and own your failures, but keep moving. That's the plan. Again, it is in much greater detail in the show notes to this episode. Now, your final orders as we wrap this up. I want you, as soon as this episode ends, to text me at 812-648-3380. Text only, but I want you to text one word: lead, follow, or out. Tell me where you stand. Make the decision. Be honest with yourself, and then tell me where you stand. Lead, follow, or out. You've made the decision. I'm going to lead, or I'm going to follow right now because I'm not sure of my leadership, or I'm just going to sit in this muck and mire that I've been in, and I've decided I am out. Text me. One word. Your answer at 812-648-3380. That's how I will know where you stand. That's how I'll know you heard this, and that's how I'll know you're not hiding anymore. You've been hiding. You've not been leading, but now it's your turn. We started this episode with the sound of the bell, that we are in the ring and we are fighting for your marriage. It's time for you to take action. So stop listening and start leading. Text me now, lead, follow, or get out of the way. Until next time, gentlemen, have a great day.